It's all. They're all still joining, I think. Yes. Waiting for the last one. Well, welcome everyone to today's live with Daniel, Ekaterina, and Eli. We'll be speaking about work-related questions we're scared to ask today. My name is Aniek, I'm 24 and I'm Dutch, and I'm working as an intern here at Europe Language Jobs in Barcelona. Europe Language Jobs is basically a job board like Indeed that connects multilinguals all over the entire world with jobs abroad where they can use their languages. So for example, if you're German and you speak Spanish and you would love to work in Lisbon, you can go to our website and select Spanish and Germany or Spanish and Lisbon, and you will get a whole lot of jobs where you can apply, and you might just be working in Lisbon within a few weeks, who knows, just like me. We also do blogs every single day that give career advice or job advice at topics like how to network when you're an introvert, or how to prepare for a job interview, or how to make the perfect CV and stuff like that. And we also collaborate with universities by doing job fairs and by giving seminars in universities all over Europe. Please definitely check out all our social media like TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, because we also offer a lot of advice there. We are currently ending the end of our 30 days to get a job challenge. It's ending at the 1st of November. So definitely check that out. We have been giving a lot of advice for 30 days about the road to get the job you have been wanting to get for months, for years, maybe. And now I would like to introduce all three of our coaches. So I will start with Ekaterina to tell something about herself.
Hi, my name is Ekaterina. I'm originally from Russia, but since 2009, I've been living abroad in Belgium, UK, and now Spain, near Barcelona. I'm working as a coach who helps people change careers, find their passions, and discover their kind of life that they want. I would say it like this. Nice to meet you all.
Now, Eli, please go ahead.
Sure. My name is Eli BOHEMOND, based in the greater New York City area in the US, but quite international. I've lived in the UK, worked in England, Beirut, and basically anywhere that I could travel and do this work remotely. I've supported about 4,000 plus career changers and navigating transitions in over 90 countries over the last 8 years. And I myself I'm a 5-time career changer. So practice what you preach, live it, and be able to kind of share that information with others who are navigating the same thing, especially on an international level. So excited to share some of this expertise with you all today.
And then last but not least, Daniel.
Hi, I'm a professional CV and resume writer. I work remotely with people all over the world to help them tell the story of their career in a dynamic document. I also teach people how to use LinkedIn, and I write cover letters for people, but I do it in an interactive way where I interview each person and write their story in the same moment that I'm speaking with them to give them the new CV or resume at the end of the call, essentially. I have been doing this for 3 years. I do it remotely from Porto, Portugal, or wherever I travel to. Like right now, I'm visiting a friend in Paris for his birthday. And it's an adventure. I meet a lot of amazing people, and I've made friends from it. I met my partner from work. So it's just brought a lot of joy and enrichment into my life. And I love helping people, so.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's nice to start with you guys just telling me a bit about the most taboo questions you have had in general. I think our visitors would like that a lot, to hear those stories from you.
The most difficult questions or taboo question? What was the
taboo questions? Yeah, questions that are hard to ask, like work-related questions.
Do you mean ones that are hard to answer or ones that are hard to ask to the employer?
The ones that are hard to ask to the employer, like how do you ask for a salary raise, or how do you prepare for a salary raise? When is it a good time to do it?
answer the salary one. So we talked about this in a previous call, but I tell every client to create a brag file, which is sort of anytime you are complimented or your impact is quantified in your job, to keep a file that you have access to, so not necessarily on your work computer, that you can use to just remind your boss, hey, like immediately after you do something and you receive praise, you bring the file, but where you tell the boss, here are all of the ways where I've added value in the recent cycle of my or quarter. And you can make the compelling argument, you never tie it to your personal needs or like how inflation is going crazy. You tie it to the scope of my role has evolved. These are the things I've done beyond my normal job description. And this is what I would like to be compensated. And then you open the conversation, backing it with facts, because you can't really trust any employer to keep track of how much value you're bringing or adding. There's no file about you as a high performer, only if you start to underperform. So that it's anytime you're receiving praise where you can then leverage the brag file to open the conversation. That's my advice there.
Yeah.
You have any advice? Oh, Eli, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. That's a great positioning. Oftentimes employers have certain times of year where they're open to having these conversations, but I think trying to plant these seeds early in ongoing conversations with your manager is going to be important. And even if like there's only like one time of year, maybe you miss that time of year because you just started the job and it's like, oh, now I have to wait an entire year for the next performance conversation. That can feel a little bit challenging because then you have basically 12, 14, 15 months almost where you're not going to have the opportunity to level up your salary, level up your job. So how, I get approached a lot by individuals on how do we start creating the space to have these conversations earlier? And most people just don't. So you have to remember that squeaky wheels get the oil, right? So the more that you're able to bring up certain aspects of the work that you're doing, what it is that you're looking for, the types of growth that you hope to experience in your role, even if your manager isn't asking you, not every manager is a good manager. Not every manager was trained to be a manager. Sometimes you need to manage up. So you knowing what you need and how to ask for that is going to be really important in your one-to-one conversations with the person that ultimately holds your growth in their hands. And another thing to also remember is that even if you have a manager, there is your manager, even though they're a leader in the organization for you, may not actually have any decision-making authority when it comes to budgets, timeframes, and shifting things around. All you could do is advocate with them. And if they can't do anything, you might need to advocate to their boss, advocate to the HR team, and start having different conversations in that way to see conversations move forward. Otherwise, you're going to stay where you're at unless you decide to leave. So just a different perspective based on what Daniel shared as well.
Yeah, so I guess I will just add up on this thing. It's once you enter the company, I worked my last years of corporate life were in diversity and inclusion function, and definitely working a lot with females and generally minorities. It caused a lot of these questions. How do I speak about pay rise with my manager? How do I get advocates in the company if I used to just, work nice and deliver everything that I could and just expect this raise to happen, and it doesn't happen. So I guess it's also very situational topic and situational question depending on if you belong to minority and depending on the culture of organization, how to get this topic in a nice way so you're getting heard by right people. And as Eli said, sometimes it's not your manager. It may be someone else in the company who has the power to drive these topics forward for you, like your advocate, your mentor.
I think we also got a question from Maria asking, what do you say when they serve you the there is no budget line, even if you delivered and exceeded expectations? Who would like to answer that question?
Well, you can check with how the company has reported how it's doing. So you can try to gauge if they are using that as a line and being dishonest. or if they've done the thing where they simultaneously report record profits because they are overworking their workforce and having them do multiple jobs instead of replacing the workers. So just check how the company's ranked, like on whatever metrics or how they brag. But it's tricky. That one's tricky because you can't say, "Hey, I think you're lying." Like that's that's aggressive to respond back. But there's a way to at least know for yourself if they're being honest or not, which is scour the internet for how they rank by what criteria in their industry, and if they've reported record profits, or if you can see the signs that they've let people go or let positions be vacant for a long time. That's not very promising for your future at a company, because if they get in the habit of allowing employees to absorb all the work when someone leaves or is laid off, it's just not promising for growth or it's like equity, like an equitable compensation.
It's really hard to kind of be confident to give pushback to your manager, because we have been taught most of the time, especially if I'm Lebanese, so like in cultures like this culture of respect with your elders, and I know that's a pretty, depending where you work, it's quite, you take these cultural norms and you apply them into the workforce, but there is a certain way to ask for transparency. So if they're saying that there is no budget, it's like, well, I'm not with your permission, I'd love to ask for a bit more transparency into what the budget is. When are these budget conversations happening? What was the budget before for individuals, and maybe why isn't there budget to support individuals in their growth and development here year over year, especially if expectations have been exceeded? And if we can't, you can also look for other ways to find budget. So if it's not for base compensation increase, then maybe there is a way for them to allow you to utilize professional development budget, send you to a conference, continue education. Maybe they'll pay for a certain course. Maybe there could be a spot bonus, or even though I don't like it, there's something called like a retention bonus. They can give you a bonus, and if you choose to say, I'll stay for a year, and if I leave before the year, I'll pay the bonus back. So there are like different things that you might be able to negotiate in to see a certain amount increase. But really, it's nice to ask for that level of transparency, because a good manager will find a way to give you that information, even if they've been told that they have to keep it quiet or manage it securely, right?
So I guess I would also add here, it's about negotiation, and in negotiation it's important to understand your stakes, and like getting in open conflict with your manager if you have been in company for like just few months, maybe it's not the right thing to do. So it's about maybe this negotiation is a lot about questioning the other side. Okay, so what I've done this, and I over delivered, for example, and what happens next? And if you don't have budget, what happens next? What's my role in the future then? What about my motivation? So like probing manager about how they view the situation personally, and trying to get this on a more kind of personal level rather than very formal and conflicting.
Yeah. I think I have a question that a lot of women might find hard to ask their future employee or the employees they already have. So imagine you want to be a mom and you want to ask for maternity leave. How would you approach that situation? How would you start the conversation about getting maternity leave? I think Eli might have an answer for that.
Yeah, sure. So now recently we held a panel with a lot of mothers navigating transition. These are new moms, individuals considering becoming parents, individuals who've been mothers for quite some time, left the workforce, came back in the workforce. And maternity leave, at least in the United States, I know in many countries in Europe, is a benefit that is outlined specifically in your contract. So it is illegal, at least here in the US, for employers to discriminate against you if you have chosen to or have gotten pregnant and need to take that time off to have a family. So really, it's going to be something that you should feel confident bringing up, because companies legally can't discriminate. Does that mean that there may not be bias? They may look you over as someone who's considering to have a family, and maybe know that in the next year you may be taking 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, sometimes a year in some amazing countries in Europe, especially in Scandinavia. You know, there could be that subconscious or unspoken bias, right? But still, if that's the type of environment that you're going to be walking into as a mother and someone who wants to become a parent, and you can kind of feel that there's bias, or maybe you feel that the decision was made because not to bring you on because of your asking this question, well, screw them, because that's not an environment you want to be a part of anyway. You want an environment that's going to be supportive. I've heard of moms who were hired, they had kids, they got promoted while they were on maternity leave, right? And companies like this do exist. So basically, just don't settle. Don't be afraid to ask these questions. It is your legal right to ask these questions. It's your right to know. It's your right to live your life while you continue to work. And companies that don't appreciate that don't deserve your time or energy, right? And they'll learn very quickly that society is moving in a direction where we don't settle for inequity and injustice, especially when it comes to discrimination against women, or discrimination on race, or discrimination on basically gender, all of this stuff. So yeah, so don't settle. Basically, just have the hard combos.
I would suggest bringing up this topic the very first moment you have the interview. So, well, it shouldn't be the first question, but it can be one of questions you ask if you are female and you want to work for this company, because the way they approach the maternity leave, the way they put a system around it and support around it, it's super important, right? So many companies nowadays have coaches who would coach women for maternity leave before going on maternity leave, and then during maternity leave, because then what happens is that way of work can lower confidence. It's more difficult to kind of go back. So ask about those support systems, and then I think it will become more clear for you the company culture again, right? If it's supportive or if it's not.
Yeah. I think Khaled has a question for you guys.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Hello, Aniak, Daniel, Ekaterina, Eli, marhaba, means hello in Lebanese. So sorry for my voice because I'm sick a little bit. I have actually like several questions, but I will start with the first one. Each one of us has a dream job. For example, for me, I had a long path, like I did many jobs and I have different backgrounds, and my dream is to work, for example, with European Space Agency or with NASA, or maybe Boeing, like something very interesting like that. But right now, I finished that task in my career, and then I'm searching, as for now, I'm searching for a job. So the task right now is to find a job, whatever this job. Let's be honest, like I need to do something. I cannot stay without a job. I need to start a new career, to do something. So this will take me to the next question, maybe. How can I promote myself in like a job that I'm not dreaming to be in for a long time? Yes, I have background in communication, administration. I'm a mediator. I have a diploma in mediation. My background is material science. I have PhD in material science, and I established a center for private sessions for students. But then I think that is efficient for me, is efficient to include this in the CV. But the issue in the CV that I cannot include, I cannot explain everything. So the recruiters will not know efficiently what I was doing in those jobs, the tasks. So how can I manage everything? Like, sorry, maybe the question is a bit long and controversial, maybe.
Controversial. Funny you mentioned NASA and the European Space Agency. The friends that I'm visiting in Paris actually works at the European Space Agency, and she got a job in America at NASA that she's moving back to the US for. What her job is that she's a project manager using some of the skills you said of communication and administration, because her job, it's not glamorous of actually working with the space stuff, but it is that she teaches all the scientists to use a particular file sharing system and to like make the transition to a new file sharing system so that all these people and different stakeholders like use the tool that is essential to their work correctly. So she's not necessarily like going into space and like doing things there, but she has a job that is essential to European Space Agency. That was essential enough that NASA also made an offer for her that she accepted. So you can slant what you are good at in a way that, like, when you're positioning yourself for a job that you want, frame it that you're not a person asking for a job, that you're a consultant bringing a solution. Like, hey, I have this thing that you need applied in this context based on studying your LinkedIn, your company LinkedIn, studying your website up and down. So you can, when you apply, you make your resume specific for the job, but you slant all the bullet descriptions of your work in a way that connects with the themes of the company. Something I write on all the resumes and CVs I write for my clients is a little bio about just how many years of experience and what the core skills are, and then a line that changes every time they deploy the document to an employer of seeking the next professional challenge as, and then the job title of each individual job they're applying for, and then doing X, Y, Z, like the job synthesized in one sentence, and then for, and then whatever the industry of the company is. So like, let's use a different example. Let's say it's like Netflix. You'd say for a pioneering streaming platform. The reader of Netflix looks, they see, okay, these are the core details about this person before we even get into the history of their whole career in one little 3 lines or 4 lines. Then the line about the challenge that you're looking for helps show what you're applying for the job in a conscious way, that you want jobs exactly like that, and that if they don't take you, you'll apply at the competitors also. So the reader at Netflix would think, uh-oh, we can't let this guy sit in the pile too long, because if he will go directly to Apple or Amazon if we don't accelerate him now. So you can just slant each CV and resume with care. The main thing I have to teach every client is that it's better to tailor each document for each job than it is to spam out 100 versions of one that is unchanged, because the main reason why the document will get put in the trash is that there's no obvious reason why you're applying in the first place. So often even just declaring your intent is enough, like if you're making a career change. Something that I get a lot of clients who are teachers in the US. So the pandemic, and anytime there's a horrible incident in a school, teachers reconsider their whole trajectory and maybe apply for jobs in education technology or marketing. So if they just sent the teacher resume without the little bio explaining the desired change, people will think, why is this teacher applying for a job in marketing? They're not qualified at all. But if you just make the argument of, these are the skills I'm bringing, this is how they'd be useful to you with that consultant, industrious mindset, it'll make it so that your years of experience and whatever they're in do actually count towards the new thing, when maybe it's not obvious unless you explain it, That's my, and if you want, also connect with me on LinkedIn, and my friend is very lovely and I can connect you with her. And I know that she would like answer a few of your questions, particularly about ESSA and NASA.
Great offer. That's a great offer. Take him up on that.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I think I added all of you in LinkedIn except Anyak, because I didn't met her before. I find many offers, for example, in Boeing, but the issue is they need a U.S. citizenship, because the worker needs a private permission for working there. This is
this is going to be something that's going to be really challenging here if you're looking to work with security clearances, particularly in the United States. So there's going to be a lot of, you're going to need some type of added work authorization level, right? Which makes it a bit more challenging. you could look for a partner, maybe in the United States, to expedite that process, as many of our Lebanese friends and family members do, but that's not ideal to marry for work, right? And authorization if you don't have to. But so one of your questions is like, how do I just get a job that I don't really want right now that's going to help me build the skill sets? So there's this idea of targeting. So it sounds like you've done a lot of stuff, but not all of it's going to be relevant to a job that you're going to be applying for. So really understanding what are some of the gaps that I'm looking to fill with this next role that might help me get into my ideal job that's going to be in aerospace and defense, and how can I take certain aspects of the work that I've done before and really apply them to be very targeted towards those jobs that I just want in the interim, right? So, if you're applying for something that's not super relevant comparatively to all the things that you've done with your PhD and your litigation work and all of these things, you could talk about that, but maybe it's just better to have like a one line on like earlier positions, things you've done that just show the time frame and that you've done this, versus focusing in on certain aspects around, say the next role requires like communication skills. You can just focus in on certain aspects that you pull from the job description for those roles, and make sure you're using a lot of the keywords from those job descriptions to mirror the relevancy, right? You have to ask, if someone read this, would they think I'm relevant, right? Or would they just get lost in all the detail that I'm trying to have? It's not a life bio that you're sending. It's like a very targeted, 1.5, maybe 2 pages
Start
is
the
fine,
conversation.
right?
To start the conversation. And I'm personally, I know it's an opinion, I don't do the second page unless the person is very senior and all of the details that flow onto the second page are absolutely pertinent, because you can have the one page be very concise and then have the link to the LinkedIn and the contact info where the LinkedIn has everything. That's my approach. Personally, because the second page might intimidate a reader who only has 5 seconds to look at the document and decide if they want to proceed with you or not.
Yeah, I would just add to this that during our different jobs and different works, we gain what is called transferable skills. And people who do change careers, they learn how to bring these transferable skills from one area to another area. So I have a friend who was like in totally different areas of work, and then she knew how to use her transferable skills. So she ended up with she was working for some social companies, then she was doing the Big Four consulting work. So I guess it's important for you to make your rich story coherent. So what is this story about? What did it make you as a professional? And which skills you can take from your previous jobs to the new one? And as Eli mentioned, like having this clear what this step is going to bring you to get this big goal of working for NASA or other company.
I think that was great advice.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the answers. It was very, very sufficient and very, actually, how I say, beneficial. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Okay, then we have another question from Sahar. As someone who is undergoing a career change and is still unsure about it, what advices do you have for me? I'm very positive about the new career, but I still don't know. So what do you advise?
I love this question, right? So this is hard. Like you think you know what you want, but you're still confused, right? You're like, how do I validate that I'm heading in the right direction? Because there are an infinite amount of choices you can make when it comes to a career. So most people look externally for these answers, right? Like what would my family consider to be in a successful career? What do I do really well that others have told me I do well, that I can continue to do to make money? And because I do them well, they make me feel good. But that's not enough. You have to really look at the things that give you energy, right? So when you're doing certain tasks, what tasks, whether it's at work or in your personal life, what things do you do that you look at it and you're like, wow, time passes quickly. I actually enjoy the process of doing this, right? Like, for example, I'm very good at systems and operations, right? I could design systems and automation tools and all these things. And I've done this quite a bit in my career. I don't get energy from it, right? I get energy from coaching and working with people one-to-one, presenting, facilitating, being on panels, talking. This is where I get most of my energy, right? Marketing, all these other things that I could learn to do. I don't want to learn to do that, even though I could, right? So you want to start understanding what is it that you want to spend most of your time doing, because it's going to give you energy, and start making decisions based on that, and seeing if the roles that you're selecting check those boxes, most importantly, not the external boxes of like prestige, money, title, all these things they're okay, you know, but they're fleeting. You're going to experience burnout. It's going to affect your personal life. It's going to affect how you show up with your friends, with your family, with people around you, and just not worth it in the long term, especially if you have the financial freedom and flexibility to make a decision. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just need to work to live. And if that's where you're at, work to live and earn and see how you can grow to get to a point where you can make that transition to do something that really aligns with what it is that you enjoy and that gives you energy more. So it's, you know, I don't want to be blatant with the advice. I just know it's not practical for a lot of folks to just be like, yeah, I want to work in my passion. Sometimes you have to work in a lot of things before you understand what that passion is. And then over time, you have more flexibility to move into it. And sometimes that flexibility may not show up, especially if you're moving from a country where there isn't a lot of opportunity and you're creating a new life for yourself and your family. It's like my parents struggle. They didn't have the privilege of choice. They just took what they could take, so that way the next generation has that choice. And it's a harsh reality. We can most likely avoid it or evolve from that this day and age, but it might be a concession that some of us need to make, and it seems a bit unfair, honestly. But the world is pretty unfair. So I don't know if that was depressing or.
I think the the world is unfair, but we should stay optimistic. So
Yeah.
I guess with your message, you mentioned that you're positive about that, but you still don't know. And here it's like positive is about emotions, and don't know it's about knowledge and about mental capacity, mental like skills, mental knowledge, right? So I guess here it's for you to explore what you don't know yet, what you need to know to make this informed choice about your career. You get all positive vibes, and it's right, for change it's very important to get this energy to move, but then it's also important to get all necessary kind of input to make informed and right choice. So the question back to yourself, Sahal, is about what yet don't you know that will help you to make right decision for you at this point in your life?
Don't know if Daniel has something to add to that.
That one I'm okay. No, I can't add anything more.
Then I think we're going into the last question, which was asked by Elena. She's looking for a raise right now in her work, but it seems not possible, and her team is trying to push her to be in another project. What if the new offer job is the same wage as the old one and with more tasks? Is it okay for it? Is it worthy? That's what she's asking. So I don't know if you can read the question in the chat.
Yeah.
To everyone.
I mean, that connects to the thing from the beginning. Definitely when okay, so she could potentially get the raise in the new project. I guess before you accept it, you treat it like it's a new job, where you make sure you understand the scope and the compensation, but then you bring your brag file of saying, on the other team, I brought this impact, and like, I want to grow within this company. But like, I think I would deserve this amount because I'm bringing this amount of understanding of knowledge of the company. So you make a compelling argument, because I'm sure they would pay someone market rate or higher if they're bringing them over from a competitor, right? So you just want to make the argument that your knowledge of the company, its inner workings, is useful, and that you'd really knock it out of the park on this new team with minimal onboarding. So just advocate for yourself. People have to be comfortable bragging about their achievements and the value that they bring to a company, and not being deterred if you're met with pushback, which you will be. And in these conversations, you have to look at the person with authority over you as if they are your equal. You maybe still talk to them as with respect, but their instinct is going to be to just, that's the structure of corporate entities, like to be exploitative of the worker. So you have to be comfortable advocating for yourself, and be also comfortable to walk away. If you can sense you're going to walk into a situation you're not happy or comfortable with, start applying for jobs, making sure your LinkedIn is perfect, and go to the exact competitor of your company right now. They will pay you to have the access to the information of what their competitors are doing. So that's my take on this one, without much, without more details.
So you mentioned that the CEO is the only one who could give you a pay rise. So I would just suggest prepare for the conversation with your CEO first, and then see if it's possible to get a pay rise and explain your point well, and go there with a good intention, right? So I'm not sure about like your situation, how good relations are, but it should happen, this conversation. And with regards to different projects with more tasks and the same pay, not sure. So I think you should reconsider why you're making this move and what will it bring you. Sometimes we can do this kind of lateral move without increase in wage, because we want to learn something new and we want to get new skills to get a bigger job in the future. For example, sometimes people who change careers, for example, they would kind of agree for a lower pay because they understand that what they're learning is the most important now. So for you, it's I'm keep asking you questions back to as a coach. So my question would be like, why would you make this move? What would it bring you that will make your career richer? And as an advice, talk to your CEO. Yes.
Well, thank you, Khaled, for your nice words. That were all amazing. Very friendly of you. I think we're coming to the end of our live, right? Which was supposed to be till 4, I think. Oh, it's still 4:30. Oh, no worries. Then I wrote down a question as well for myself, but I think also to the rest. When do you know you're working in a toxic work environment? Or how do you know it?
It's a good question. I could jump in. So usually you might be experiencing physical symptoms of anxiety in the morning, right? Or at work. So it shows up in different ways. You might not want to go to work. You might be not excited about the work that you're going to do. You have these feelings of resistance when it comes to doing certain tasks. Then there's also like overworking yourself, right? You feel like you have to over deliver. You have to feel like you have to work extra hours. You have to do all of these extra tasks at work. And if you don't, then your manager is going to think you're not doing enough. You're not enough. You're not going to get the promotion, right? Also, if you have questions that arise and you don't feel comfortable asking these questions, you don't feel comfortable having these conversations, you have to ask yourself why. You know, if the space is safe and they've created a safe space for you to open up and be transparent and ask questions, and there's not going to be that internal resistance as much. But that's not to say, also something we need to consider, each of us as humans comes with a lot of pre-programmed trauma, right? Thanks mom and dad. Thank you, society. Thank you, our education systems, our friends. So we have a lot of things inside of us that maybe tell us we're not enough. We're not worthy of having these conversations. So there is like this level of self-awareness that we need to step into before we can really understand, is it our pre-programming that is preventing us from having these experiences or having these conversations, or is it actually the workplace that we're in, because it could be a little bit of both too. So more so, I just want to say that to start bringing some awareness to what could be happening inside on the subconscious level versus answering this question, because it's a really hard one to answer. There are going to be like blatant things where you're overworked. People are saying really mean things to you. You're feeling bullied. You feel like you're not safe. You feel really anxious as a cause of the work that you're doing. Those things are more predictive of a toxic workplace versus, other feelings that maybe you're telling yourself a story because you have been for a long time. So sometimes it's tough to like pull apart where this is coming from. So, I mean, I work with a therapist. I highly recommend therapy in helping to resolve these internal struggles. Coaches are great. We can do some of this work at a higher level, but going in and like untangling trauma and things like that, that's where the work really starts for the individual, especially if you want to grow. And then the toxic environment, I think, will more effectively present itself in a much clearer way. I'll stop there.
I guess toxic environment can be also like the same toxic environment can be toxic for some people and not toxic for some other people who thrive on conflict, who thrive on like this kind of challenges, on stress. There are this type of people, and but for people who are more sensitive, maybe the environment can be toxic. So as soon as you start asking yourself this question, is my environment toxic? Maybe it's time to start discovering your environment and find facts, like try to separate from emotions, but then like, do people listen to you at the meetings? Does your boss give you not only like, does it give you praise? Do you get like what Ellen mentioned, like what are your symptoms when you wake up, or if you cannot go to sleep normally? Do some of your friends mention that you might be working in a toxic environment? Because our friends sometimes in our families know better than us. From the side, it's always better observed. Yeah. So I guess it's collecting those facts, and if you have like 3 facts of that environment is toxic, it is a toxic environment. So then from there on, you should start thinking of your ways of either coping with that or exiting that, right? So I guess this would be my suggestion.
Signs that a workplace is toxic, like if you're just peeking at a company and trying to understand, like predict, could this be toxic? One sign for me is if hierarchy and seniority is tied with age, okay? Because I found that in a modern company that's flowing and dynamic and with good synergy, it won't just be the older people are the ones making decisions at the top, with younger people taking the orders and doing the work. So that's a recipe for disaster. Because there's this concept in one of the notorious generations that they think they paid their dues, and that now because they were abused, they can in turn abuse others. That's something I've experienced myself, and the clients that come to me, often the motivation of their resume change jobs is because they do not feel respected or appreciated by their manager. And by their manager often is lazy, technologically illiterate, and but having the benefits of a much higher salary from this paying their dues vision of again exploiting the worker. So that's one sign. Another sign is if it's not diverse, or if again there's not enough diversity in the people in the decision maker roles, because there should be enough women and minorities to then be mentors and nurture the careers of other people to make it like a success, like a well-oiled machine, not falling into the cookie cutter, not inclusive way of presenting and being. Another way to tell if a company is toxic is if people are gossipy, or if people are Machiavellian, sabotage you. Like if you feel like your ideas are getting shot down in meetings and then used by someone else, like things of that nature. Like if you just feel uneasy at all, trust it. And then the same thing where I said keep a brag file, also keep an actual log of any time you don't like something, or something is not like if you're being abused, like, and you don't even know it, you should at least keep track of a pattern and of dates and times where things were toxic. Even if you don't do anything with it, it's just good for you to know, but you could also use it to try to be a force of change at a toxic company. Unfortunately, it's all too common that a lot of companies that are not prestigious or even if they are, the workers could be unmotivated. And even if everyone's nice to each other, they could all think that the job and the company is a joke. That's a different type of bad environment, because you won't grow there, but I don't know. There's a lot of ways that an environment could be unhealthy or unbeneficial. Another one is, if this is going to sound really ridiculous, but if the employees are actually very happy and want to stay, but then the conditions that they stay under, that they're not rewarded for growth, or that the technologies they're using are outdated. I have a lot of clients from one particular international organization that did a really good job of making a healthy international culture where the people are happy to be a part of it, but then they stay too long, and then they don't know how to use actual technology used in the private sector, and they really struggle with the learning curve when they get out. And then you have a choice of stay or get out, and it seems like that choice is made for you. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know, sorry for the lack of coherency of that answer, but toxic workplaces are what have driven most of my core friend group to be freelancers. So yeah.
Very amazing advice. See, we have another question from Donika Naikova. She is scared that she might get scammed if she's going to do an online part-time job. And do you have any advice on how to be sure that the offers are genuine and that they're not scams?
Yeah, I can talk about that immediately, because this happened to two of my clients. You have to cross-reference, like the interviewers could have, anyone can say they work for a company on LinkedIn. So really you have to cross-reference and check the email addresses, check everything to make sure that it looks like it's in the consistent brand style guide of the employer, right? So also it's a bad sign if there's weird spelling mistakes or anything that just triggers a red flag in the way that the person on the other side communicates. Obviously, if they try to get you to buy equipment with a check that they mailed to you, that's a very common scam. One of my clients thought they were hired by Headspace, the meditation app platform, and it turns out it was a scam, because it was to get her to use a check and have it bounce, something of that nature. So just make sure you check, if you found the job on an external thing like LinkedIn or Indeed, you check that the job is also posted on the company's actual career page. If it's on the career page, they're actually looking. And then you can get a sense if they accelerate the process too quickly. Like if they make you the offer in the call, that's a little bit suspicious. Like if they seem over eager and you don't feel like you actually won, like if you presented your best self, but they seem over eagerness is a bad sign too.
You can also Google a bunch of stuff and type scam after it with the company name, just see what comes up, see if other people have been through this as well. It's unfortunate, but people are just looking to maybe if they're asking you for any type of personal information, your unique ID, tax ID, social security number, things like this, or even your bank account information for any reason, just yeah, this is not a good sign, right? And then some companies that are looking for you to just do some work initially, it may not be a scam. Some companies like hire people and as part of the process, they ask you to do this big project that upfront that will prove to them that you're qualified for the job. Then you do the project and you don't get the job, but basically you did free work, right? So that's just another thing to look out for. If the project itself feels like you're doing a lot of work for the company at no cost as a part of the interview process, you can push back, especially if it feels like it's going to be any more than 1 hour or 2 hours worth of work for you, right? So a lot of companies, especially startups, try to get free work like this. Some don't know it's a bad thing, and they're just like, yeah, we just want to make sure. But it's you can push back on this as well.
I have actually had this personally for a job interview where they asked me to write a blog for a company, and then they didn't accept me, but they still used the blog for their website. So that was also,
That's deplorable. You
yeah.
what you should do is invoice them if they do that. Like if you can say, yes, I'll do it, but I'm going to invoice you. That's the safeguard. And then how they react to that is very telling of how exploitative they will be if you actually work for them.
Then we can do one more question, or we can thank everyone for this lovely meeting, since it's only 30 seconds more. It's up to you.
This might be a good spot to end.
To end it all.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining today's lives and being interactive and asking us questions. And then definitely follow our coaches on LinkedIn. Thank you, coaches, for giving some advice today. And I'm wishing you a great day.
Thanks, guys. I'll put my website and LinkedIn in the chat.
Thank you.
Love.
Bye.
Guys, this was delightful. Bye.
It was.
Bye-bye.